The Caribbean is a big place, and this short presentation may pose more questions than it answers, but that's good. It's my intention to get you started doing your own research, preparation, and plans for a voyage to and through the Caribbean. The idea for this series began last summer when Cruising World asked me to write an article on my favorite anchorages in the Caribbean. And it's in this issue here, the October issue of Cruising World. First thing I did was call my friend Larry Tyler, who has been cruising and chartering his boat, the Dove, in the Caribbean for over 30 years, and he's there now. Together we came up with a list of 20 of our favorite anchorages, but the article in the October edition only has 8. So with that in mind, we figured a Zoom seminar to expand was needed. Before we get started, let me introduce myself so you know who you're watching and listening to. I'm an author, writer, journalist, photographer, boat owner, and offshore sailor. I contribute frequently to Cruising World and Caribbean Compass magazines, and I've been sailing for more than 50 years, and I've owned 4 different sailboats. If you're still dreaming of spending a few weeks or a month or so, or the entire winter season in the Caribbean, this session may help you understand the possibilities and the hurdles. If you're already heading in that direction, then you've already begun to prepare your boat and organize a crew. But this session may help you define which islands to visit and what route to take. The Lesser Antilles are a string of small islands that ring the eastern Caribbean Sea. The Leeward Islands to the north are circled in red, and the Windward Islands are circled in green to the south. It's 500 miles from top to bottom, and the entire chain can easily be explored in a single season, spending weeks, even months, at favorite anchorages. The Virgin Islands are the most northerly. The U.S. Virgin Islands circled in red here are comprised of Vieques, Calabria, which are called the Spanish versions, St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix to the south. The British Virgins are in green, are Tortola, the Big Island, and then there's Virgin Gorda, Jos van Dyke, and Anegada up north. There's a string of small islands on the south that make up Sir Francis Drake Channel, and that's Norman Island, Peter Island, Salt Island, and Ginger. The BVI is the bareboat capital of the world, so many of you that are going for the first time, that's probably where you're going to launch from. So I've spent many winters down there, and I'd go back, and there are dozens of islands, coves, harbors, villages to visit. Anchorages now have become mooring fields where you have to pick up a mooring because of the coral. The sailing is easy for first-time bareboaters. The itinerary I've suggested here is a zigzag course up the channel, visiting various islands. Most of them have restaurants. There's more than enough for a 2-week cruise, but a 1 week can be frustratingly short. Aim for North Sound, then turn around and sail back downwind along the north coast of Tortola with stops in Sandy Key, at Foxy's on Jos van Dyke and Cane Garden Bay, then back to where you picked up the boat. It's easy sailing for crews who know boats, and the BVI is certainly set up for maximum holiday fun. For the real West Indies sailing experience, you have to go further down islands. St. Martin, Anguilla, and St. Barts comprise the next group of islands, but it's not easy getting there from the BVI. The trade winds, the seas, and the current are on the nose all the way, but it can be done. Just wait for the wind to go a little bit north of east. It'll still be a slog to windward, but it's worth the effort. Maybe it would have been better to have sailed directly from St. Martin or even Antigua when you left the States. The Nark Rally leaves Newport, stops in Bermuda, and ends up in St. Martin. The Salty Dog Rally sails nonstop from the Chesapeake to Antigua. Either way, you can always visit St. Martin and the British Virgin Islands on your way back north. There is an option. I've made the voyage from Round Rock Passage, just south of Virgin Gorda on the BVI, to Guadeloupe. It's about 200 miles. It took us 30 hours on one tack. We left in the afternoon and got there the following evening. Then we day hopped down the island chain, stopping every night to sleep with the Q flag flying all the time. Each morning we hauled the anchor and sailed to the next anchorage. The trip down to Bequia with nightly stops took us 5 days. From Bequia, it's 2 days down to St. George and the Grenadine, and then you can work your way back north, spending weeks, even months, at the islands you find interesting. St. Martin is a good arrival spot. After a long ocean voyage, you'll need some provisions, boat repairs, more propane, and somebody to fix the refrigeration. St. Martin has excellent airplane connections for getting the delivery crew off and back home. The Dutch side of St. Martin is one of Caribbean's major yachting centers with extensive marinas, super yacht parking, boat yards, repair facilities, and stores. There's nothing they can't fix in St. Martin. The French side is less commercial, but far better and expensive for provisioning. A cruise around St. Martin would fill a week. Add a visit to Anguilla, to St. Barts, can make up a 2-week vacation on a bareboat charter. You'll have to clear in each one of the islands because each one is in a different country. It's just 15 miles from Philipsburg on St. Martin over to St. Barts. Can't miss this island. So stop for lunch at Île-Fouche, a small volcanic island right on the way. And when you get into Anse-Colombert, you find a delightful spot. It's at the northwest tip of St. Barts, and it's an open bay with good anchoring. There's a wide beach, hiking trails, but no restaurants, no inns, no condos. It's a Wild West with just a few goats. It's a 10-minute dinghy ride into Gustavia, and you may as well be in Saint-Tropez. The port is full of mega yachts, all stern to the docks. High-class boutiques line the streets. It's where the Euro jet set winters. There used to be a sign posted, no topless motorbike riding allowed. From St. Barts, it's 75 miles, an all-day sail of open oceans to Five Islands Bay on Antigua. Why 5 islands? Because it's easy to enter even at night with GPS and Navionics on your iPhone. Creep in and drop the hook in 20 feet of water. The next morning when you awake, you can sort yourself out. You can motor around the next day to Jolly Harbor to clear into customs and immigrations and pick up more fuel and water. Or you can leave the boat off Hermitage Resort and take the dinghy in. If you anchor off at the Hermitage Resort, you might be able to pick up their Wi-Fi, and the jazz singer at night lulls you to sleep. Customs and Immigrations officer are at the end of the Mark Channel in Jolly Harbor. You'll see the flag. You'll have to fill out the paperwork online on easyclear.com. The process is painless, but it'll take about an hour to clear in. Jolly Harbor is a Florida-style marine complex with condos, beach resorts, restaurants, shops, and cafes. It's as far from the West Indies as you can get in the West Indies. But the marina has an easy-in, easy-out fuel dock. There's a boatyard with hauling facilities, a well-stocked budget marine store, rental slips, and a great supermarket, the best on the island. Wi-Fi is a bit sketchy, but for the price of the beer, you can get 30 minutes at the bar. If the inner harbor is too hot and you want to swim, just anchor on either side of the channel leading in from Reed's Point. Now, Antigua itself is a large island, and you can spend certainly a week exploring its 360 beaches, coves, bays, and anchorages. The North Sound and the bays to the east are full of little places to drop the hook while you be alone. But one spot you don't want to miss is English Harbor and Falmouth Bay on the south side of the island. It's an hour-and-a-half motor around from Jolly Harbor to Falmouth Bay. There's plenty of space to anchor, and the dinghy dock is at the head of the harbor by a gas station next to a farmer's stand with a locally produced produce, and across the street from Sam and Dave's Laundry. They'll wash and fold your duds. There's a budget marine store just down the road. I've spent weeks anchored off of Pigeon Beach, where you can see the 2 blue dots on the map, on the chart. Next to the yacht club is a Seabreeze Cafe with Wi-Fi for the price of a beer or an iced tea. There's a modest grocery store there and plenty of restaurants and bars handy by. It's a short walk from the Seabreeze to another market and then further on to the dockyards. Admiral Delson built the naval base in the 1700s, but when the Brits left Antigua to its own fate, the dockyard was abandoned and fell into decay. Until the Nicholson family arrived from the UK. They were sailing on their schooner Mollyhawk to Australia and stopped into English Harbor on the way. And when the ship's cat refused to come back aboard, the family decided to stay. The Nicholsons are still there today. They were instrumental in launching the charter yacht business, and with the help of wealthy patrons, they brought the dockyard back to some of its former glory. It's now a World Heritage Site. The renovated buildings have been put to good use. There's a bakery, a sales shop, offices, a rum locker, Customs and Immigrations is there. There's a restaurant, and the Admiral's Inn is a 3-star hotel. Across the way is Antigua Slipway with a railway that's capable of hauling most any size boat. From the dockyard, it's a hike or a taxi ride to the top of Shirley's Heights, a cliff overlooking Falmouth Bay. And from here, you can look down on the dockyard or across the ocean to Montserrat and down south to Guadeloupe. There's a bar there and a restaurant, and on Saturdays there usually is a steel band. Antigua is a busy place in season, which begins with the annual Antigua Charter Boat Show in early December. In April, the Antigua Classic Regatta brings some of the world's largest and most famous traditional yachts together to race for a week. This is followed by the annual Antigua Sailing Week, which is for newer yachts. Throughout April, people are arriving into English Harbor that have rowed across the Atlantic. Yes, rowed. Specially built boats. Some in teams of 2 and others solo. It takes about 2 months to row and drift across the 3,000 miles from the Canary Islands. When you've exhausted all that Antigua has, it's off to France, to the island of Guadeloupe, which is less than 50 miles away to the south. It'll be some open ocean sailing, but it can also be quite delightful. Across those waters, into the lee of Guadeloupe and Deshaies, the small harbor tucked in between 2 tall cliffs. You could spend weeks there. In fact, I have. It's here you clear into France. The Customs and Immigration's office is a computer inside La Pelican Boutique. This small one-street village is not on the cruise ship ports or the tourist bus excursions. It's a residential town with 3 small grocery stores and the best tomatoes and pineapples I've tasted. The patisserie opposite the Tingy Dock has fresh croissant in the morning, but you have to get your coffee out of a coin-operated machine. Very un-French. There's ATMs, 3 dive shops, rental cars, but there's no yacht facilities or supplies or water or fuel. Wi-Fi is available at the Madras, which is a thatched roof cafe on the beach. Just around the corner is a mile-long sandy beach. You can take the dinghy around, or you can walk over the marked trails around the top of the cliffs or around the base. A mile south of the village is an extensive botanical garden. My family and I spent half a day there last year. The holding ground in Deshaies is not great, so make sure your anchor is well set before you go ashore. The wind can occasionally come blasting through the valleys into the mountains. If there's an east coast storm off of New England, it'll send swells all the way down to the Caribbean, and in Deshaies, the conditions can become uncomfortable, if not dangerous. I recently had to ump anchor and escape those swells. It must be said, paradise often comes with her blemishes. The next group of islands is the Saintes, 6 miles south of Guadeloupe. Last year we found a vacant anchorage between Tête Roger and Pan de Sucre in 30 feet of water. There are other anchorages nearby, and there's a bunch of rental moorings that you can pick up closer into town. We liked our solitude. The water was clear for swimming. It was a 10-minute dinghy ride into town, which was not too bad. Ashore, the village hasn't changed much since I was there 10 years ago. French school children in uniforms scampered past the shopkeepers as they swept the pavement in front of their stores, their colorful fabrics and local artwork spilling out onto the sidewalk. We had the entire village to ourselves. Then, the first of a dozen ferry boats arrived in the town, disgorging hundreds of tourists from the mainland. The village was abuzz, the single street packed, with electric mopeds and bikes to rent, restaurants galore, roads and paths to walk, beaches to visit. But you do have to mind the young daredevils on their motocross bikes. The crowd quickly thinned as they headed to the beaches on the south and east side of the island. This went on all morning, but in the reverse in the afternoon. But by tea time, we had the village to ourselves. Next stop is Prince Rupert Bay at the northwest tip of Dominica. This is another open roadstead. Good anchorage, good holding ground off the town of Portsmouth, but there are moorings to rent and a team of local fellows to provide security. They call themselves the Portsmouth Association for Yacht Services, and they're a good bunch of guys. The town itself is a bit worn out, but the island itself is amazing. It's the tallest and the largest of the West Indies, with rainforests, cascading rivers, waterfalls, deep jungle valleys, and some pretty good winding roads. We had Albert, one of the Pays members, take us on a row up the Indian River one late afternoon. It was like being rowed back into Jurassic Park. The banks of the slow-moving river is lined with impenetrable vegetation. There's birds and iguanas and turtles and all kinds of wildlife. Only rowboats are allowed, so it's quiet and still. Albert is a registered guide, and he knows the river and its inhabitants well. We rented a car and drove around much of the island one day, into the mountains, stopping at waterfalls for a swim and visiting a Carib village. From Portsmouth on Dominica, our next stop is 50 miles to the south at the anchorage of St. Pierre, at the base of Mont Pelée, a dormant volcano on Martinique Island. The anchorage is a narrow shelf that extends less than 500 feet from shore, so finding a place to put your hook can be challenging. The depths fall off to 1,000 feet, so make sure the anchor is in well. The dinghy dock is substantial, and the village itself is very French. But Customs and Immigrations is a computer terminal in the town hall and the promenade by the dinghy dock by the open-air market. There are shops, grocery stores, ATMs, and restaurants galore. Rent a car and drive into the mountains to explore. The roads are amazingly good compared to the English islands. There are streams, rivers, waterfalls. The main city in Martinique is Fort-de-France, further south along the west coast. It's a major port, commercial and busy. There's a French naval base there. There is anchorage facilities and marine stores ashore. From Saint-Pierre, at the northern tip of Martinique, the next roadside is Sainte Anne, at the southern end. 30 miles, 5 hours of motoring. I've counted over 200 masts last time I was there. The bottom raises gradually to 15 feet, so pick a spot and drop the hook. Make sure it's down because there's some areas of hard coral. There are no marine facilities ashore here, no fuel dock, but there is a very sturdy dinghy dock and a delightful, colorful village to explore. There are 2 grocery stores, an open-air market, a fish market, a number of beachside restaurants and bars, and a wonderful boulangerie where you get fresh baguettes all day long, plus a patisserie. Wi-Fi is available at the bars for the price of a beer. There are hiking trails and beaches, and even a Club Med nearby. If you need fuel, water, or marine parts and services, it's just a few miles further in to the bay at Marin. The fuel dock is easy in, but it's usually busy, as this is one of the largest charter fleets in the Caribbean. There are marinas, boatyards, a floating dry dock, half a dozen marine stores ashore, plus markets, yacht brokers, mechanical, electrical, and hydraulic services shops, all clustered around the shore. Next is St. Lucia. It's only 20 miles from Sainte Anne to Rodney Bay on the northwest tip of the island. The bay is wide open, and you can anchor anywhere along the beach on either side of the channel leading into the lagoon. Inside is an extensive IGY marine facility with hundreds of slips, fuel dock, boatyard, stores, shops, and a hardware store just across the street. There is also a great gelato shop at the marine complex, and there are dive shops and mechanical services of all kinds. The supermarket is a dinghy ride to the south end of the lagoon, and there's usually a chap in a rowboat laden with produce and fruit to come along and sell to the boats. Down the coast of St. Lucia, there are a few more anchorages. Marigot is a small inlet tucked into a cliff. Inside, there are moorings on both sides of the channel, but beware of coral heads. I got our Bruce anchor stuck one year and had to dive to 60 feet to get it free. Once in there are moorings to rent, and this inlet is also a popular mega yacht haven, and there's an upscale resort and restaurants ashore. Every sailor wants to spend a few days anchored at the foot of the Pitons. The Twin Peaks raise straight up out of the depths to an impressive 2,500 feet. You might feel that you're again in Jurassic Park warp and the dinosaurs are about to emerge from the jungle any minute. Anchoring here is always a challenge as the water is so deep, but the park people have now put in moorings, and the boat boys ashore will help you secure lines ashore to keep the boat positioned. Expect to pay them, they're freelance. Ashore, there are hiking trails to the top of each peak and steaming mud baths nearby. There are restaurants ashore, and the town of Sophia is not your upscale yachting center, but there is a fine dinghy dock and an open market that's packed with fruit and vegetables from the farms nearby. There's a hardware store in the village where I learned that the machete in the islands is actually called a cutlass. It's 35 miles from the Pitons on St. Lucia to Cumberland Bay on the west side of St. Vincent Island. This is a small anchorage with room for only a few boats, but it's the real West Indies. Anchor in the southern cove and run lines ashore. There are knocked-together bars, a barbecue stand, and restaurants along the beach. A football pitch is over the road, and the village is a walk nearby. There's a pig that has made its home along the beach, but he's probably gone by now. Pigs have a use-by date. There are other coves along the shore of St. Vincent, which you can tuck in. If you've not cleared into St. Vincent or the Grenadines before, you'll need to do that at Wallabout Bay. If Bequia is your preferred destination, it's close to 60 miles from the Pitons, a long day sail spent motoring along the lee of St. Vincent. You may find you're getting in after dark, but no worry. The Large bay on Bequia is open and easy to enter with GPS and Navonics on your iPhone. Drop the hook in the lower bay, which is usually devoid of any other yachts. In the morning, you can up anchor and move closer into the mooring field or stay put. The water is clear out there, and you can see you're anchored in 25 feet of water. It's a bit of a dinghy ride into town, but the further in you get, you may find the entire ARC fleet is there, plus a few mega yachts and cruise ships. But the town itself is quite delightful and has most everything you'll need, even a modest marine shop. English is spoken, dollars as well as EC, other currency. The Customs and Immigration's office is to the left across the street. Look for the flag. There are a few grocery stores and an open-air produce and fruit market and a fish pier. Bequia is still a shipbuilding port, but the ships they build now are less than 3 feet long. Model yacht construction has carried on with a few of the local builders, and they'll make a replica of your boat for the mantle at home. Ashore, there are roads and hiking trails up into the hills and the beaches on the south and east side. There's an airport here for commuter flights to the larger islands, and the streets and paths to wander, and reefs to dive, and a frequent performance in the outdoor village. You could retire here, and a lot of American and European expats have. From Bequia to the Tobago Keys is 30 miles, a 5-hour sail. This is one of the most popular destinations in the Caribbean, for the water here is crystal clear, the coral forests are colorful, and all you need is a mask, snorkel, and fins. Dropping the hook requires a cruising permit, which you can obtain in Bequia or Union Island, a few miles to the south, for a few EC dollars. It'll be busy here, so options are to move further south and anchor between Petite Saint Vincent and Petite Martinique. This is a short dinghy ride to the coral reefs just to the north and east. The current be strong here, so make sure the dinghy anchor is secured in the sandy bottom. There's a resort on St. Vincent, which I hear is off limits to cruisers, but there's a fuel dock on Petite Martinique and a small village ashore. Union Island nearby looks like a relic from another time with its sharp peaks and jagged terrain. The main town is Clifton Harbor, but the anchorage here can be crowded and it's deep. There are a few rental moorings for transients. The fuel dock is at the yacht club. The Customs and Immigration's office is in the village. If you're leaving the Grenadines for Grenada or arriving from Grenada, you'll need to clear in and out of here. A more tranquil anchorage is Chatham Bay on the west side of the island. This is a wide open crescent-shaped beach with barbecue bars ashore and local fishermen. Larry and Justina on the Dove spent a good part of the time during the pandemic anchored here. Just south of here is Carriacou, part of Grenada. It's 10 miles from Clifton Harbor, bypass Hillsborough Bay, which is the village on the island, as the Customs and Immigration Office is moved to Carriacou Marine in Tail Bay, to the south of the island. There's yacht services here, a boat yard, and a ferry to Grenada, shops, stores, cafes, and restaurants. And taxis to drive you to the windward side of the island, where you can see traditional West Indian wood sloops being built. From Teal Bay to the entrance of St. George's on Grenada, it's 30 miles, 5 hours. There's a designated anchorage in Martin's Bay to the south of the harbor entrance, but I've heard now that you need to pick up and pay for a mooring, and you can do this on docwa.com to register. Inside St. George's Harbor in the Lagoon is Camper Nicholson's Port Louis Marina with slips for mega yachts and transients. Across the inlet is the yacht club with fuel and water and Wi-Fi at the bar. The city of St. George's is a large West Indian city. There are supermarkets, 3 of them, a large open-air market, shops, restaurants, and everything you could need. The south coast of Grenada is full of inlets, bays, and harbors, many with yachting facilities and yards to haul your boat and store it for the winter during hurricane season. Prickly Bay is the largest anchorage along the south coast. Spice Island Marine, a large storage and repair yard, is at the head of the harbor. There's a budget marine next door and a waterfront cafe, plus bus service into town. Prickly Bay Marina, where there's a Customs and Immigration's office, has recently expanded facilities, and the airport is nearby. To wrap up, I've listed 20 different anchorages and 15 islands, and there's still more for you to discover. It's possible to spend an entire season here, mid-November to mid-May, 5 months exploring the Eastern Caribbean with ample time to get to know the people, the food, the mountains, rivers, waterfalls, trails, and the culture of each island. Take your family, we did, and we'll be back. Life is about experiences, and sailing the islands chain of the Caribbean is certainly one of them. You may run into me down in the islands this winter in some marine store, beachside bar, or boatyard. Say hi and tell me a story. Well, that concludes part 1 of the Grand Tour, the Eastern Caribbean islands. Part 2 deals with more of the specifics, how much it's going to cost, where to go, how to store your boat, customs and immigrations. And when it comes to customs and immigrations, one thing I didn't cover in this presentation is COVID and the pandemic's impact on access to the islands. Each island has a different protocol for letting cruisers come in and drop the hook. A lot of that work is going to have to be done online and paperwork filled in before you leave the previous island. A lot of that information is available on this channel in separate videos, so check them out. And I'll be back soon with some more stories.